Right, back in Zurich I asked you to have a think about what money is, what money represents, and now that we're here in Germany I want to turn to the thoughts of one of Germany's most important thinkers in order to try to answer that question. I'm referring of course to Karl Marx, and particularly to what he wrote in the first few chapters of volume 1 of his book Capital. Now where Marx begins is with the simple commodity. He asks, when is it that an object that we use, let's say an egg that we eat for breakfast or the spoon that we use to eat the egg with, when does a simple object become a commodity? The answer of course is when we take it to market. In other words, when we try to exchange it for a different commodity. When we do that, we realise that a commodity not only has its use value, but it also has an exchange value. Now exchange value isn't quite the same as price, because price can fluctuate wildly according to supply and demand. But if you have a constant supply and a constant demand, then the value of commodities still differs. The egg will almost always have a lower value than a bottle of wine. A bottle of wine will almost always have a lower value than a gold ring or an iPod or whatever. So where does this intrinsic value come from? What determines the value of a commodity? The answer, Karl Marx tells us, is human labour. The amount of human labour that has gone into the production of a particular commodity, and that includes the distribution of it and the packaging and so on. 20 yards of linen will have a lower value than the same 20 yards of linen which have been cut and stitched into a coat. The extra human labour invested in the linen has increased its value. Now that's not to say that if a worker works slowly that the produce of their labour will have a higher value. Of course we're talking about average labour time required to make something. Nor is it the case that something has value just because somebody's worked on it. It has to actually meet one of the wants or desires of other people. It has to be socially necessary. But it's labour time that creates value. That's the key point. So what about money? Well, commodity exchange in the real world is of course very complicated, and if you think about it, it becomes clear pretty quickly that we need to be able to compare the value of every different commodity to a single other commodity. We need a universal equivalent. Money, originally in the form of precious metal, stepped into that role. When in Britain we talk about spending £10, what we were originally referring to was a weight of silver. Now of course we have paper money and increasingly digital money, but the fact remains that money is a representation of value created by human labour. What you're walking around with in your wallet is a representation of human labour expended. This is a fundamentally important point, because what it suggests is that all of wealth in capitalist society is created by the people who actually do the work. Now what a capitalist would say in response to this is that actually, although it's true that labour creates value, that the jobs wouldn't be there in the first place if it wasn't for my brilliant entrepreneurial skills. It was me who set up the company, it was me who invested in the machinery and so on and so forth. I deserve all the rewards coming to me, the capitalist argues, because I risked the capital. But what a Marxist would say in response to that is, yes, you risked the capital, but where do you think the capital came from in the first place? Perhaps we'll try and answer that question tomorrow. I think that's enough for today. I'll see you in Cologne.